chair. Okay. What is the limit of my chair? Okay. Similarly, if some guy is a wrestler, okay, so they will test their strength. They will fight with a 80 kg guy, 120 kg guy, 140 kg guy. They just want to know their limit, okay, their strength. Similarly, for an application also, we want to know strength. Okay, if 100 guys will come and they will try to hit my website or my web service, what will happen to my application? Okay, so that is performance testing. Now, why we are using K6 nowadays? Because earlier you might have heard about a tool called JMeter. Okay. So why we are not using JMeter? The thing is that JMeter is a tool, and in JMeter you have to basically associate some, you have to arrange some blocks. You have to open the JMeter, then you have to define your request, then you have to define some pre-action, post-action. For reporting purpose, you use uh, sampler there. Okay, so that is a tool, but many people are nowadays not interested in tools. Okay, they want to use the programming language. So K6 is a library that gives you flexibility to write your performance in programming, purely programming. You don't have to open any tool. Whatever IDE tool you are using, whether it is Eclipse or IntelliJ or VS Code, you can open that tool. If you know the JavaScript, you can write your performance test cases. That's it. So that is why K6 is very popular in market nowadays. And how to install K6? So installation is very simple. If you are in Mac machine, you can do install K6. If you are on a Windows machine, you can use Choco install K6. Now, what is this Brew and Choco? They are basically a package management tool in Mac and Windows, etc. Okay, you can install Chocolatey, and using the Chocolatey, you can install any tool. Okay, if you do not have Chocolatey, there is not a big problem. You can simply go to K6 official website in this release section, and here simply you can come down. Okay, I think first you need to click on a version. So this is also one version. You can click here, and in this version page, you can come down. And based on your machine, you can also download either zip file. If you download the zip file, you have to put the path in the environment variable, or otherwise you can simply download this Microsoft installer MSI. Just download it. One file will be downloaded in your D drive here. Sorry, download drive, and just click install, and it will be installed in your machine. So installation is very simple. Okay. And these are some of the important links that after the session, if the slide is shared to you, you can just go through these very important link. Okay. Other than this, I have not put much theory because we will be doing everything hands-on. Okay. So I hope you can just click here. And this will start a download. So it's a 29 MB file. It will be downloaded in a few seconds. It's taking some time, maybe my internet is slow. So this is already installed in my machine. So let's skip this part. Let's directly move to writing our test case. Now, performance testing is something that we cannot do on any random website or any random API. The thing is that any application that is in production, if you send multiple requests to that particular application, they will consider you unauthorized person. They might consider it a hacking attempt, or they will think that somebody is trying to put their application down. So they will block your IP address. Okay. So for that purpose, what I have done, I have created one simple API. This is our user service. What this user service does, This creates one user. Using that user, we can log into our service, and then we can get list of users. Okay. So let me deploy this service using the Docker. So this is using the Postgres database, and user service is written using the node.js library, okay, using the Express service. Now we can go to our Postman, and in Postman on 3000 port this service is deployed. We can simply, with this JSON body, we can create one user. So user is created, okay. For get user, we can send a request to this endpoint using a get method, and this will return us the list of user. If we create another user, and we again run this get users, now you will see there will be 2 users. Okay, so this is a microservice because nowadays in performance testing, if your application is something which will be used by everyone, for example Amazon or Flipkart, then only we will be doing the browser testing. Otherwise we will be doing only the microservice testing only. And what are the microservices? Your application is actually consist of several small services. For example, if you are creating a book catalog kind of application where your user can come and they can buy the books, so you will have one user service where your user can log in and log out all those kind of information. You will have one book catalog service where all the information related to books will be available. Then you will have one order service which will be used for ordering the book and payment purpose. You will have a notification service which will send SMS or notification to your email notification to your buyer. And similarly, you can have some other services also. Okay, so an application is basically consisting many services. Okay, so similarly, this is our service, and we will test this service basically. Okay, so we have so far we have created 2 users, and we can verify those users in database also. So we have these 2 users in database also. Okay. Now we will test this service, and you already know what are the function of this service. One function is create user, another function is get user. Okay, these two are function of this service. Now we will create a folder first of all. In G Drive, we can create a folder. So let's call it CGC for demo, and we can open this folder in our VS Code. So this is the VS Code, and here we will create our cases script. Okay, so we will name this as script.js, and here basically we will simply create 2 functions. First function will be create user, and another function will be get users. These 2 functions will be here to hit our API. Okay. Later on, we will talk about the performance testing, but first of all, we just want 2 functions. One function for creating the user, and another function simply for getting the list of users. Okay. So let's start. First of all, we will have options. Now inside this option, we will define how many users will hit our service. Okay, those kind of things we will define here. So function user. So this is my create user function, and another function will be get parameters. Okay, these are two very simple functions here. Now this JSON body is called payload. We can call it JSON body, we can call it body or payload. Okay. So I will say let body is equal to, and what will be the body? This is my body. This is my JSON. I will post body here. Okay. And after that, we need to send a request to one particular URL. So this URL, we have to send the request for creating the user. So we will say HTTP. Actually, my computer, there is one AI application running, which that is why I'm getting the suggestion automatically. Okay. So just ignore. We can change our URL, and this is our body. And here will be our parameters. Now, what are parameters? Whenever we send any request, you can see we have some headers. Okay. So these headers are passed basically, and this content application JSON, this is a mandatory. So we have to define this header as well. So here we have to define this. Yes. Is equal to, we will say, we will call it parameters. Will be our content type application JSON. So this will be our headers. Okay. And this headers we will pass here. Response we are receiving, this is our response. Okay. We will store this response in one variable. Now we are hitting a request. We are sending a post request basically to this URL with a body which is this and with parameters. This is what we are doing here in a shell. Any doubt so far? Before we move further, okay. And this is a JSON request, so we will use JSON dot stringify to convert this string variable into a JSON variable. Okay. Because this is a JSON. So now this is our body which is ready. This is our header which is ready, and we are sending a request to this particular URL. And we can put one check as well here because I want to check that my request should return 201 status. If you see here, 201 created is returned. 201 is the status code which is returned. So this should be returned. So that is why we have put one condition that okay, user is created. This is a status code. So right now we are not going to implement get user because first we will send this create user request, then we will use this get users also. And since we are working on cases, we need to import library related to K6. Okay, so we will say import. We are using HTTP, so we will say import HTTP from K6. And also we are using check, so we will say import check from K6. And after that, we will have to call this function, create user function, we will have to call. So here we will say, so now let's just remove it. Now we will say export default function. So guys, like if you know little bit of Java, you know we use public static void main. What is public static void main? That is the first point of our execution. Similarly, export default function is that first point of our execution. So whatever we want to execute in Java, we put inside public static void main. Similarly, here we want to call create user function, so that we will put inside export default function. Now this first part is ready, and running it is very simple. We just have to use K6 run script.js. And right now you can see that request is failed. And what is the reason of failure? Okay, let's generate. Okay, right now we cannot generate report, but let's see why it is failed. Okay, this has failed because uh, I have put a check in this API that if we try to create already created user, it should say user already exists. Okay, so that is why it is failed. We need to modify our request. Let's modify it. Now it will work. And also we have not specified the options. Maybe that is why also it got failed. So again, if it will be failed, we will change the options as well. So you can see this time it is execution is successful. Now we will go to our database and we will verify it. So you can see this has created. Okay. Now, as I said, main purpose of performance testing is that we want to basically check that, okay, if one user is using my service or my application, it is working fine. But what if 10 users come and they want to use my service? What if 20 users come and they want to use my service? What happens if suddenly 100 users come to my application and they want to use my service? For example, you are an entrepreneur and you have launched one application, and your application is not much used. Only 10 people use your application, 100 people use your application. Suddenly, one find you think that, okay, now I want to launch some offer. For example, Amazon launches big billion day offer, and suddenly thousands of people start using your application. So your application will not be able to tolerate that much load. So in order to prepare for these kind of event, you do performance testing to verify that, okay, if suddenly 10,000 users come, what will happen to my application? Okay. So right now, if you see only one user is using my service. Okay. So here what I will do, I will say that I want to use my service for 10 users. Okay. So there is a one term which is called virtual users. So I will say 10 virtual users. And for how much long duration this user should hit my application, so I will say duration that should be 30 seconds. Okay. For 30 seconds, all these users should keep sending requests to my application. Now we will run our application, and again only one request will be successful, and subsequent requests will be failed because they will say user already accessed. But this request will be successful because I have modified this, but other requests will be failed. So now you see one scenario, 10 maximum virtual users, okay, and they will run for 30 seconds, okay. Why it is showing 1 minute max duration? Because 30 seconds is the duration and 30 seconds is the graceful stop. A graceful stop is the default time given by K6 for allowing your users to perform their iteration, perform their task. They should not terminate in between. Okay. So 30 seconds is my duration and 30 seconds is graceful stop. So again, if you see only one request is successful and remaining user requests are failed. So you can see that in 30 seconds, if suddenly 10 users come to my application, they will be hitting my application for this much time. Okay. And we can generate reports also. So K6 has very good reporting also. This is K6 reporter and very easy to use. We don't have to do anything. We just have to import these two lines. And we have to use this function, export summary. Okay. Because obviously, if you show this execution report to your higher management, you will not show these things. Your higher management wants to see some reports. Okay, so we need reporting as well. So similarly, we will include this reporting function as well, and report will be generated by this name result.html. You can change this name to any name that you want. You can say output.html. Okay, and again we will run. Let's change this because at least one request should be successful. And now we will run it again. And again, it will run for 1 minute. Okay, so report is generated. Let's open the report as well. So this is a very good report. It's saying that total number of requests filed are 37,000. 37,040 requests are failed because only one request is successful. All other requests said that user already exists. And these are the data that are very useful data. Okay. What it is saying that on an average, our request is these are milliseconds. These are not seconds. Okay. These are milliseconds. 1000 milliseconds is a 1 second. Okay. So these are milliseconds. So what it is saying that a request took 7 milliseconds and maximum there was one request which took 366 milliseconds. On an average, request took, that means 50% request took 6.66 milliseconds. And one request took 1 milliseconds. Okay. And now percentile. What is this percentile? This percentile is saying that 90% request took 12.60 millisecond or less than that, and 95% request took 15 millisecond or less than that. Them. Okay. And here we can see other requests or other data also. So only one check is passed, remaining check are failed. Virtual user, minimum virtual user were 10 and maximum were 10. Okay, we said virtual user should be 10. And total these many requests are passed and rate was, that means 1234 requests were fired in 1 second. In 1 second, these many requests were fired. So this is very useful data for performance guys. Okay. And similarly, we have this created user function and it passed only one time and this time it is failed. If you want to ask question, you can ask question right now as well. Okay, there is not a problem. So this was about the report as well. Now we will solve this problem that we want to send dynamic request. Okay, because we are seeing that only one request is passed and for other request it is saying user already exists because this user is already there. Okay, in database also we can see only these many users are only here. Okay, for other the request is getting failed. So what we can do is we can create one CSV file. We can call it user.csv. In this file, we can keep our data. And we know that our JSON requires three things. It requires username, and it requires email, and it requires password. So this is my header, and now I will put my data. Okay. So I will say John. Email will be john@example.com. And password, I will say password, but very simple. Second user will be Jen, and jen@example.com. Password can be same, it does not matter, only username and email should be different. And Mike, example.com, whatever. Now let's copy paste this for 10. Okay, so now we have these 10 users, data of these 10 users. Okay, and let's make them unique. So John 1, Jen 1, Mike 1, John 2, Jen 2, Mike 2, and John 3. Here also I'll say 1. Here I will put 2, and here I will put 3. So now what is my expectation? Let me make task very clear. I want to put data from here, and I want to put data here on these places. Basically, I want to make this request dynamic. I don't want to hard code it. So when this will become dynamic, every time a new JSON body will be sent, and we will not get user already exists error. Okay. So now we have CSV ready. Now what we need to do, we need to read the CSV and extract values here. So what we can do, first of all, we can load the CSV here. So for that, we need to uh, read about some function. Okay, so there is something called shared array, and this shared array is what it does. It basically load a CSV file into an array format. So every row become one index. If you know about the array, array has a index. Okay, so if there are 10 values, 0, if you say array 0, the one row will be that array 0. Okay, array 1 will be second row. Similarly, you have, so this shared array, what it does is basically uh, upload the CSV file. Okay, so you can upload a CSV file or any file. It uploads, and it makes a array kind of data. It returns array, it stores in the array kind of format. Okay, so we will use the shared array. We will simply say import, and here we will import the shared array. And for CSV, we will use another library called, like, as I said, shared array was to load data in the array format. We also want to deal with CSV. So we will say papa parse k6. This is another library. Okay. So for complete beginner, this this will not be that much useful because they don't know what is library, they don't know what is array. But people who have some kind of understanding either in Java or any other programming language, or they know these things, they will definitely find it useful. Okay, because if we start and explaining what is array, what is library, it will take a lot of time. Okay, so we will also take this library, and we will parse our CSV file. So I import from here And then I will create one function. Basically, I will say that give me the CSV data. So I will take that CSV data and shared array. Let's name the shared array something. So we will say CSV data function. I need to give the location of our CSV file. File. Open. And our CSV name is users.csv. And then we will run it simply. And first row is header. We don't want to read the header, okay? We only want to read the data. So what we will do at the time of parsing, we will say that please ignore the header. So we will say header true. When we say header true, that means header should be ignored. And then we will close the curly braces here. Okay, so this is my CSV data, which is basically uh, creating my shared array with this name using this CSV file, and I'm returning this CSV file. Okay, and then I'm also saying that I don't want the header, so header should be ignored, which is true. Now we will create. We need to read the CSV data, and we need to pass it on to our payload. Okay. So now I have 10 users. How I want to run this performance test? I want to say that my each user should fire one request. Okay, so first user will fire this request, second user will fire this request, and third user will fire this request, and so on. Okay, in this way I want to design. So I will first of all I will need the virtual user index, and virtual user index start from first, and CSV shared array gives data in array format which starts from 0. So there will be mismatch. When virtual user will be first, at that point of time, CSV data will be 0. So for in order to align them, I will say -1 from the virtual index. So virtual user will be 0 and CSV data will also be 0. So they will be sync. And then I will say, because you also have to handle that my execution should run only till this row. It should not go beyond this row. Okay. I have to handle this thing also. So I will say virtual index less than CSV data dot length. Okay. Till this point it should run. This is what I'm basically saying here. So I will here I will read the user data. I will say user data. The data I will read from this CSV data. CSV. Since CSV data is an array, we need to pass the index value as well. So this will be my index value. And using this index value, I will change value here. So I will say user data dot username, user data user data dot password also. So now my payload is changed. Now my payload is dynamic. Now I'm reading data from CSV file. Okay. And here my body will be passed. So everything is fit now. One more thing that I can do here is I can basically say here that I want to read my payload as well. So I will say console.log and I will say payload is, so whatever the payload that will be printed here. This thing also I can do here. And to this also I will try to change username, email, password. Anything else that we can do here? This curly braces need to be closed. So we have this let body, which is good. We have this params, which is good. We have console.log, which is good. We have this check as well, which is good. And this is an unnecessary. So need. Okay, now it is okay. Let's format the document. So now we will try to run the request. Can we just remove this new terminal and we will shorten the duration because 30 seconds is a too big time. It is sending many requests. So let's make it 1 second. And now let's start some field pop-up just couldn't be found on local disk. Okay, so it's not in local disk. We can find from some other location. We will directly import it from the disk library. So we can download, we can import from this URL. Simply we can pass that URL here. The only thing is instead of K6 utils, we need to give Papa pass, and this 1.4.0 is a very old version. So we will use a new version. And now let's try to run it. So we can see that some requests are fired. 10 requests were successful because, as I said, we have only 10 rows here, excluding the header. And for remaining uh, requests, it obviously said that user already accessed. Okay, and we can also see that our payload is also it is able to read our payload as well. Now we can go to database and we will run the select users, and we can see that database is already working. Okay. Now, if we go to this particular request, get users, if we run it, if we run this, we can see we can fetch all the users. Okay. So now we will create one more function in our script.js. Okay. So behind the create user, I will say function get user get all users. And here it will be very simple. Here we don't have to pass body and all things. What we have to do, we have to do simply say http dot get Our endpoint is users all. So we will say users all. And again, we will take this response to one variable. So into this variable, we have taken this response, and we will apply one check as well. We will say check that my status should be 200 because get method always return 200. So that we have put here that status code should be 200, and we can call this function here get all users like this. And we are seeing that our request is going very fast, so we can give some delay also. We can say sleep for 1 second. So between all these virtual users, it will sleep for 1 second. So now let's see what happens. And also we can print this response as well. Okay, so let's say console.log, and this is the response. Response dot what is the response? Okay. So again we will say so now we can see that all 10 requests were filled, maybe because um, we gave 1 second of time. So they were not executed. So let's remove this time because our execution time is also 1 second only. Duration is 1 second only. So that's the problem here. So let's remove it. Let's run it again. Okay, so now what happened? And now also it's saying that okay, again the same problem, database, these they already exist in the database. So when it tried to create, it's got user already exist. Okay. Somewhere it should be printed, but probably we are not printing this response. So let's print this response as well. Post response. Now we will run it. So now when we see here, we are getting user already accessed. So I will delete these users. Now we don't have any users, and now we'll run it. Again, there will be some amount of failure because you can see 200 requests are being fired. So some amount of failure will, or like 190 requests will definitely be failed, but some requests will be triggered. So 10 requests were passed, 160 were failed, but in get all users, all requests were passed. Now we will check the report as well. So in the request, you can see 350 total requests were fired. If I come here, 185 were passed, 160 were failed. Okay. If I come here, you can see in created user, 10 were passed, 160 were failed. But in get all users, all 175 were passed. So 175 requests for created user were fired, and 175 requests for get all user were fired. So this is how we can do the performance testing of our microservices or our APIs. Web services also, some people call it API, some call it microservice, some people call it simply service, some call it web service. Okay, but they are only one. One problem still exists in our application, that is in real time when you work, this URL will keep changing. For dev environment, this URL will be different. For stage environment, this URL will be different. And for prod environment, this URL will be different. And you will be doing performance testing in all three environments as well, apart from your local as well. Okay. So you need to read this, you need to change this URL also as per the environment. So you can Google about it. That will be your learning. That is your task also. And then you can, if anyone got this, like how we are making the dynamic request, how we are creating the function, how we are writing the API request structure here after reading from the Postman. So definitely they can go up to the next stage also, that how to parameterize this particular URL as well. Okay. So that was from this session. If you guys have any question, you can please ask now. Otherwise, we can simply wrap this session. Okay, so I think we are done. Thanks everyone for your time. Okay, and I'll share this slide with Shweb, so he will forward this to you guys. Thanks everyone. Have a good day.